More than 65 years ago, there was a huge eruption here. And now, it's done, all over. And yet, you can still see steam puffing out of fissures like this. Something's cooking down below, and we're right on top of it. We start the hike at the Puʻu Puaʻi Parking Area. Directions to it are in the description. So the reason for parking here and adding an extra half mile should be obvious right now. There is a plethora of parking spots as compared to the other trailheads where there is so much congestion. You can thank me later. We leave the parking area headed for the asphalt Devastation Trail, which takes us through a small patch of forest before opening up to the trail's namesake, an annihilated landscape covered in cinder, which are tiny pieces of falling lava that came from the 1959 Kilauea Iki eruption. That cinder cone above us is called Puʻu Puaʻi, or Gushing Hill. As barren as it is here, we do come across some plant life colonizing the rocks, such as this pink knotweed, which originally came from Asia. The trail hooks right at the Devastation Trail parking lot and starts descending past another side of the cinder cone. Over the years since the eruption, the cinder has been sliding back into the nearby Kilauea Iki crater. The landscape around here never sits still. After about 1.6 miles, we come to the Byron Ledge, which separates the Kilauea Iki crater from the Kilauea Summit caldera. Now, for those of you who have heard of Pele, the Hawaiian volcano goddess, then take a moment to admire her home. That is the Halemaʻumaʻu crater. For another, perhaps better view of the crater, you can drive to the end of Crater Rim Drive West and look down at it from the Ui Kahuna Visitor Center. As for the hike, we continue through the lush rainforest past Hepu'u Pulu ferns, which are covered in a soft, downy material once used for pillows and mattresses. We come to a possibly confusing trail intersection where we turn right for the Kilauea Iki Crater Trail. A short distance later, the path starts a steep descent into the crater with lots of steps made from lava rock, the building material of choice everywhere you look. And pretty soon we start to see the crater itself. Be ready for a shadeless, often hot and humid walk. And by definition, there's nothing but rock. We're now inside Kilauea Iki crater, and I'm sitting where there was once a lava lake. Now, somehow researchers managed to get close enough to this to take the temperature of this nasty cauldron of molten rock. It hit 2,200 degrees Fahrenheit. the hottest lava ever measured in this volcano. Now, I'm not saying this is a pretty place, though stark it might be. It's more the rather unique idea that we're strolling across a volcanic crater that not too long ago, relatively speaking, was spitting millions of cubic yards of molten rock. I like how these rocks are so light, full of holes left by gas bubbles when this was molten. I'm standing near the 1959 eruption's main vent, which popped off 17 times over the course of 5 weeks. Each time the lava would pour out and then drain back into the vent. And the jiggling is still going on. The crater floor subsides about 3/4 of an inch each year as the lava lake cools and contracts. The farther we get into the crater, the smoother the rock becomes. And I can imagine this as once a bubbling lake, the consistency of perhaps hot jello. If nothing else, if you feel a need to rest, we've gone nearly 3 miles so far, the now solidified rock is at least semi-comfortable to sit on. Believe it or not, there's still a lava lake below us, and not that far deep. As evidence of that is all this cracking and moving of rocks around here. This fracturing is a result of heating and cooling not too far below us. There's nothing I can find that says the crater is permanently inactive, which means, of course, it could erupt again. Something to think about. But don't worry, volcanoes usually give us a lot of warning before they blow. Now here's a good lesson in how dangerous this place can be. 4 months after the eruption stopped, scientists drilled a hole in the solidified rock. Find out what was going down below. They only got 9 feet deep before molten lava poured out. Now, the lake is pretty much solid and 440 feet deep. However, it's still pretty hot inside. Following the rock cairns, known locally as ahu, the trail starts climbing out of the crater for about a half mile. At the top, we reach one of the 2 almost always congested parking areas here. We cross the road and head for a lava tube. The Nehuku, or if this was 20 years ago, the Thurston Lava Tube, is a nice diversion and only adds 1.5 miles to our trip. It's lit between 8 a.m. and 8 p.m. Otherwise, bring a flashlight or headlamp. And of course, we have to try out the Echo. The one-way trail brings us back to the road and we head right, rejoining the Kilauea Iki Trail. We make it to the Kilauea Iki Overlook Parking Area and then the overlook itself, which is a bit overgrown. If you continue down the trail a bit more, there's a better viewpoint. The 1959 eruption started near here on November 14th from a half-mile long fissure. Near the end of that eruption, there were lava fountains spewing 1,900 feet into the air. From what it's worth, that's a record for Hawaii. Well, that we know of. The next segment of the trail continues the pleasant forest scenery. The signage can be a little confusing again, with several junctions to figure out. At this one, veer left. Here, after a moment of thinking, we continue straight. Always a good idea to have a map. We're getting closer to the end. Just remember to stay on Byron Ledge Trail, headed towards Devastation Trail. The trail continues a bit as it changes from the dirt trail in the forest to the cinder material that we started on. When we get to the Devastation Trail parking lot, take a sharp left, where we get a second look at the cinder cone. And finally, the parking lot, which still isn't all that crowded.